Good evening, everyone. Thank you all so very much for joining us for another episode of Trekker's Delight. We have some dissension in the group, and you're going to find out why just a little later. But before we get started with the dissension, let's start with the gentleman right below me. Introduce yourself to everyone.
Hi, my name is William. I love Star Trek.
Hi, William.
And
I
the
feel like
beautiful woman to my, I guess it's really my right, but I guess my left.
It's
me. That just made my day. Thank you. I don't get called beautiful a lot. Hi, everybody. I'm Marie Brownhill. You can find me obviously here on Trekker's Delight, but also on Game Industry News, where I talk all things Trek.
All right. And of
nice.
course, my name is Jermaine Watson. We are going to get started with the intro. And then after the intro, we're going to do basically a recap of the episode. And William and Marie, neither of you are going to like the recap at all.
This is my shock.
What's up, Trekkies? It's your boy Will Walford here with Trekker's Delight, a Star Trek-inspired podcast. Before we get started, we're going to give away $100, so make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our channel where we will announce the lucky winner every single week. Now, welcome to Trekker's Delight.
Okay, Marie, William, one more time, just to remind you, you are not going to like this recap at all. So,
Are you going to hurt my feelings, Jermaine? I feel like you
oh,
are.
100% based on what you said earlier and what William said before we went live. Oh, you're going to hate this.
I'll be
Let's
sure. To, I'll be sure to contain my disappointment.
This is a recap of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Episode 8, The Elysian Kingdom. The story of the Elysian Kingdom was led by Dr. Mbinga. The story begins with him attempting to find a cure to his daughter's illness. After responding to calls for him to help on the bridge, instead, he ends up in the fictional kingdom of Elysia. And at this point, there is no other recap needed because this is utter and sheer garbage. Just garbage. Just 35 minutes of garbage on top of garbage. The only redeeming quality about this particular episode was the wonderful performances by the actors in this episode. They did a wonderful job. Pike became the sniveling Chamberlain. Completely contrary to the typecast of every Starfleet captain. La'an was beautiful. She was poised. She could sing. Who knew? Uh, the only other person in this kingdom that knew that they didn't exist in that kingdom was Burma or him or whatever his name is. But this particular episode left so much to be desired. So much so that, as I said before, I fell asleep. Only to find out that this particular episode was still on. It wasn't until the last moments of this episode where Star Trek came back and you were like, yes, this is what I've been waiting on. But y'all, all in all, this was not the episode for me. It was garbage. Garbage. And if I had to rate it, it would probably be somewhere between a 4 and a 6.
Whew.
And insult to injury. So if you look at this right here.
I love that Jermaine is just like not even going to let us respond. He's like, no, I got this. I'm going to just take
we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
So the plot, the story arc, plausibility. So is it plausible within Star Trek? Yes, it's plausible. But was the story arc there? Was it fully fleshed out? No, it wasn't fully fleshed out. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. The premise or the entertainment value, nah, I'm sorry. It wasn't there. There was no entertainment there for me. Was there a message conveyed at the end? Yes, there was a message, but did we have intrigue in this? Nah. Acting, I said before, the acting was to me quite stellar. But no character development, dialogue, storytelling, nah, buddy. Nah. Cinematography, yes, as usual. Wardrobe was killing it. Was just killing it, like really.
Actually, we need to talk about that because the touches that they gave from Afrofuturism for Mbenga and Nakia are just fantastic design elements.
Editing, sound, and music, always, at least for me, is always good. Directing, was there even a director, or were there just a bunch of people just saying, "Hey, let's do this"? It factor. Will we remember this episode years from now in a good way? No. Thoughts?
I'm gonna need you to stand down. Although it's really funny because you were literally channeling me from last week.
This was just not it for me. Like it really wasn't. And I literally fell asleep for like 10 seconds. But I fell asleep. It wasn't good.
I literally don't even know how to respond to that because I did not. I was really engaged in all of this. I don't know, because like my kids are of an age where we're reading stories like this and we're talking about stories and we're talking about characters and how this works. You talk about how a story just didn't have an arc for you, but I'd argue that it does, in the sense that this is literally Nakia rewriting the ending she doesn't care for. And she's rewriting it like she's a child because she is. That's why, they walk down. They literally walk down the hall, and all of a sudden they're at Queen Nev, right? Because children's stories move like that. In fact, actually, even back further, if you go into medieval literature, Amadis de Gaula does that.
That's good.
Well, on one minute you're in a castle, and the next minute you're like
story. But this is Star Trek.
But that's the point, right? Is Nakia is telling the story.
That.
That's who's crafted this. So we have the Star Trek elements. We have the Star Trek elements with Hemmer and how Hemmer is acting it. Although, by God, I am so excited for that character. He had so much fun with this.
He did.
And I would also argue that
all the actors did a wonderful job.
They did. But I would also really argue that the characterization and the characters that get assigned to each character, we got a lot of meta shit going on here. The characters that are assigned to each character are actually significant. Like, for example, talk about La'an and that fantastic dress, and it is so much glitter. Oh my God, so much glitter. La'an gets to be the most princessy of princesses because she never got to do that. Her entire childhood was taken by the Gorn. So she has the opportunity now. This entity has given her the opportunity to swish in a princess dress. And by God, she does. We talk about
did a wonderful
Pike.
job with it.
I know, right?
She was great with it.
Right? That little dog, too. Pike is Routh, right? Sir Routh, who is a coward. And that's significant because Pike has been
probably a little bit more than just a coward.
I mean, he's kind of a dickbag.
He's probably gay. Like, come on, let's be real.
I don't really think that was so much in the script as like Anson Mount.
He played it that way. I bet
there's a lot to unpack about Anson Mount's acting choices there, and that's going to be an track faux show.
But I love it. It is so atypical of a captain. Right?
But that's the thing, though. Like Ralph actually gets to express his fear. I mean, he gets to be completely honest about it, right? In a way that Pike can't, precisely because he he is a captain. Spock has this immense dark fear and a little bit of anger kind of roiling around in him in Strange New Worlds. And so he gets to be Pollux, the Dark Wizard. And y'all, Celia Gooding, man, can we talk about how fantastic that was? And letting Uhura, who is a character who does not know where she belongs and does not know if she belongs in Starfleet. And so she makes this, she gets to be this queen that is not only sure of where she needs to be, she is, by God, making a place for herself by taking over the whole goddamn world.
But she didn't.
No,
She didn't.
but that doesn't, I mean, the result in this particular case doesn't matter. The result, what's actually important is the characterization, which is what I'm talking about. I'm gonna need you to calm down.
No, it's not. Okay, so look, so I'm not. I think all of the actors did an excellent job with what they were given. I look, I will bend over backwards and I will give you that. But when we think about Star Trek and we think about the longevity of Star Trek, what does this one episode tell us about Star Trek in general? What does it tell us about the technology of Star Trek? What does it tell us about like how is it building? How is it connecting? What's happening?
I would actually argue that this is the most Star Trek episode I think we've seen in a long time, precisely because we have first off, this episode very much recalls for me Imaginary Friend from TNG. Secondly, TOS did this shit all the time, you know, from the Squire of Gothos to a little bit with Plato's Stepchildren. We would have this entity, right, that would just come out and have all this power and would do all these things. We had Q in TNG that would have all of these like epic costume shenaniganry. We had the same thing, by the way, in Voyager.
And I think
all of a sudden they're in the middle of the Civil War.
Did it so much better than this particular episode.
Because I think you're expecting this to be. I think you're really expecting this to be an adult, like an adult story. And in fact, it's the entire episode hinges on the fact that it's not. That it's. I mean, Nikki is like what, 9? It's a 9-year-old who is literally crafting all of this, and M'Benga is trying very hard to figure out where this is going, which is when we get to the twist at the end.
Okay, so let's talk about his particular character, or I should say his portrayal of that particular character. Do we learn anything new about this particular character that we hadn't already known? Have we seen this particular character stretch beyond anything that we've ever seen? I mean, if you think about it, in this particular episode, he's basically leading. He's leading the show, right? He's the star of this particular show. And in this particular episode, we see him continue to be the dad that he always is. We get to see him kind of solve problems, but we've seen him solve problems in the past. So none of what he's doing is actually new and different. So in terms of character development, no, it's not there. In terms of plot.
He's literally wandering around in a crown. That's new and different for M'Benga. Let's be real.
Okay, but that's wardrobe. That's wardrobe.
But also, I want you to flash forward to the very end, right, with that amazing performance given by the actor, whose name I meant to look up the pronunciation for and failed because I'm a terrible human being. The moment when he is allowing Nakia her agency, this is not something he's been good at. And this episode is talking about that and talking directly to it. He's been the one who's been in control of when she comes out. Does she come out? What's going to happen to her? He has had all of these cards. And so what he learns here is to let go, like all of us as parents should. And I think I think he handled it beautifully. That moment, by the way, like I'm getting all teary again. That moment when the adult Nakia shows up and he covers his mouth. I mean, that's phenomenal. Like what the man does with his face conveys everything he's feeling. Everything. And then later we see him beginning to open up, especially to Una. And God knows I love Una and Rebecca Romaine's interpretation of her and all of it. But really what's happening is Mbenga is being taught how to let go. And I think that's hugely important. And I think that's really, really gorgeous.
So I don't discount
Not gonna lie,
that.
I cried like a little bitch.
So I don't discount that. Which if you think about it, I specifically said the end was probably the best part of this, because that was when everything started to tie together. But before, it really was just this mystical, whimsical, dream-like thing, and you're just kind of walking through it, and you know what I'm saying? Like, no one's life was really in danger. They weren't able to solve anything.
I have 3 words for you
in complex ways. This
3
really
words.
was this. Yeah. But hold up, wait a minute.
Cellular peptide cake.
So in other words, this particular story just left a whole lot undone. And I want you to think about it like this: 6 months from now, will you actually remember this episode, or will you remember the end and the social significance of what was decided at the very end? Nothing else,
will for sure.
Nothing else within this story was worth anything.
I don't even know how to combat that, because I've told you what it's worth, and I've told you why it's important, and I told you why the characterization was important.
Yeah. I heard what you believe, but that's not necessarily what I believe.
I mean, that's fair. You just don't like the episode, and that's also fair.
No, but I've also told you.
But that doesn't mean it's hot garbage.
I didn't like the theme. I didn't like the entertainment value. I also didn't like the storytelling.
Dude, like the moment when Mbenga comes up on the bridge, discovers that he's wearing this, and I do want to talk about the costumes, and I want to talk about the design elements, because these are gorgeous. Like, look at this. This is an amazing work that blends elements of African design with, various other cultural traditions, that fits in so beautifully with how Nakia would envision a story of this type. So gorgeous, guys, just so gorgeous. And I don't know if you have a picture of her, but her dress, when she is the Mercury Stone, she has this amazing beaded collar piece on the dress, and it's just breathtaking. Also deeply inspired by African aesthetics. I don't want to get too far into specific colors. There's a lot of Maasai I see in that particular color scheme, but I don't know any better. So if anybody out there does, I would super be interested in hearing about that and hearing what you know about it.
So what I hear you go back to is wardrobe.
I'm getting there. I got sidetracked. Remind me, where were we? We were fighting about something. What were we fighting about?
Everything.
I mean, that's fair.
I basically gave you a list of all the different things that I found.
I know, but you didn't care for. You actually haven't established what's wrong with the story.
You really haven't.
Actually, yes, I did. I told you that the plot was lacking. All we really saw was
you haven't said why or where this came from.
What it's so simple, and
that's
I did
the point.
And I did. No. I discount that. I don't like the fact that it was so simple. What I want to see is yes, it could be a story of that has been created by a young girl. However, what could happen is you could have these two characters, Himmer and Mbenga, reacting in a way that is similar to how someone in Starfleet would act and react. We saw a little bit of that, but it was too much was not there. For instance, something that could have changed.
I'm gonna need you to let William speak.
Jermaine?
No, well, hold on. This is what I want you to do. What I want you to do is I want you to realize how much I don't talk, and in this episode, I am talking. So what typically happens is this. What typically happens is this. What we will see about someone who leads an episode, we'll see them do something that is completely different from what we normally see them do. And in this particular episode, we didn't see him fall in love with anyone. We didn't see him get in a fight with anyone. We didn't see him outthink or outsmart any of the people that he was working against. What we saw him do was say, "This is a story."
So you're unhappy.
That my daughter
you're
knows.
Unhappy that this entire framework isn't that of an adult story.
I'm unhappy that this storyline is simple.
Exactly.
And
Like a 9-year-old.
No, but I just explained to you ways in which this could have been changed.
A 9-year-old wouldn't have done that. Any of
No,
those,
no,
any
no.
of those
But you have two
examples.
people. You have two people who have the ability to do that, and yet they didn't, because these two people have the ability to work outside of the story, and we didn't see that happen.
Transporters, like Hemmer literally transported Queen Nev and Party somewhere else.
Touche.
Hemmer also manages to pull out a acetylene torch and like
Touche.
carves through.
But what did we see from Mbinga? Who's the real lead of this particular episode?
Learning to let go, learning, making,
which is the end, and I'll give you that. I'll give you the end. I'll give you the end.
I am very okay. Jermaine is right about one thing so far. It is true. He does not get to talk very often. So I am really going to contain my answers to simple sentences. Okay? And not because the last time I felt like this, a certain someone made fun of Jermaine's hair and compared him to a Klingon. So now, okay, Jermaine, who are we to judge the story framework of a 9-year-old? Like, and then that's that question.
Y'all are not hearing what I'm saying.
And I'm gonna let you.
We are, but you're not answering what we're saying either.
Okay.
No, you're not hearing what I'm saying.
And as far as learning to let go, I'm surprised you haven't made the connection between us, Benjamin and Jake yet. How many stories between them were there instances where one or the other person had to let go?
Again, I never said that there was anything wrong about the end. In fact, in my intro, I specifically said, let's go back and roll the tape. I specifically said the end was great.
So you're saying
everything in between is
the entire story builds toward that ending.
You have to build towards the ending.
Yeah, but everything the entire story is lacking. Everything. Okay, I want you to think about it like this. I want you to think about it.
Oh my God, he's really thought this out, Marie.
The Spock character wasn't needed at all.
He was a traitor.
But it wasn't needed. Because guess where they were going? They were going straight towards the Queen, whether he was there or not. It was gonna happen.
We skipped an entire swamp of innumerable deaths. Like, did anybody else start to wonder if we were going to encounter a rodent of unusual size? Because I sure did.
I was wondering, but listen to me. If this were animated and this were a Prodigy film, I guarantee you would not be complaining about this at all.
Because their number one audience is for kids.
Hello. This is a children's story.
But Star Trek is not.
Star Trek Prodigy is for children. This story it's like judging the trick who came on the Enterprise and messed everything up. You cannot judge the framework of a 9-year-old storytelling. You can't do that. How are you
I am not.
There's a line
what I've said.
There's a line.
So he just came at me, so let me respond.
Oh, please do.
So what I've said, and hear me. Hear the words that I'm saying.
Okay.
It's not about the story that she created. It's about how the characters acted within the story. Have I not said that?
Marie.
Have I not said that?
And the point is they're still working with it. They're literally working within.
Yes, no.
I feel like if I say yes or no, it's going to end up being a trap. So I'm going to let Marie speak.
You are taking this and putting it in the incorrect context. You are expecting a story framework that is first off, would not exist in this particular book, like in this particular story. Because again, the entity that is controlling literally everything
is a god,
is based on a 9-year-old girl.
On her mind.
But this god is controlling everything except two characters.
What was that girl's name in TNG that almost did the same thing?
Characters.
No, that's literally one of the things I mentioned earlier is the imaginary friend. When we had that entity that became a child and then saw the Enterprise through a child, and actually in like 90% of that episode is spent with a young girl befriending this entity and wandering around the Enterprise and this entity not understanding why there are places that the little girl can't go, like engineering.
Jermaine, let me offer a different perspective, a more peaceful one. This story was okay. Maybe at the end it was about Mminga, but I will argue that this story was never about Mminga.
Your argument would be is that the story is about about his daughter, and I get where you're coming from.
Because if you think about it, her being lonely in that buffer stands to reason, because if the EMH has stated that once he goes in, when people just turn him off, he goes into a dark void, just like Moriarty in TNG. He went into a dark void and no one knew. So it stands to reason that the daughter went into a dark void too. How do you? Hold on, because I'll let you talk.
She is sentient, whereas all the others were not. Well, I'm not going to say that they weren't sentient. I'm saying she's biological. Because she's biological, we can assume that when these people are in these transporters and they're there for a long time, there might have been maybe one episode where the person described, I was able to see everything, but all other episodes, they don't know that they're in the buffer. It's just I'm here and then I'm here.
Because biological and technological are just two different forms of life, but they have very little to do with sentience. Okay, don't make me go measure of a man on you, because I will.
Well, which is why I said not sentience.
Now the point is right. So the point is, the entity in the nebula could sense her loneliness, not whether or not she was biological. They could care less about that. As a matter of fact, they made her into a god, Q and Vash style. So they made her into a god. 2 seconds went by, and now she's back as I won't say full grown, but as something different. So it's the stories about a child's loneliness and seeing the eyes through a child. I mean, can we not? I mean, TNG did a fantastic job at it, but Strange New Worlds is just now breaking ground on what it's like for a child to experience loneliness and show the perspective of a child and learning for a father to let go. It's a story about learning to let go. Who are we to judge the surroundings of the story? Maybe Mminga wasn't supposed to do anything until the end, because right now, if you watch this particular episode from the beginning and watch it through the child's eyes instead of wondering what Mminga is going to do, maybe you will have a better appreciation for
it. So maybe I would have if they had developed her character, but they didn't develop her character.
What would you have
that's actually kind of fair. We see her very, very little in most of the ways. Like, most of the characterization we've gotten is adorable child in a shitty circumstance. So Jermaine is correct.
And I will say this. This is what I'm going to say. I'm not going to speak as a child, but if I'm a doctor and I know that my child is sick, I'm going to do whatever it is I can to keep my child safe. And in that particular instance, what he understood was he can't find a cure. This is a way in which his daughter could live. And so from my perspective, I completely and totally understood that. From a father's perspective, from a child's perspective, this episode wasn't necessarily asking me to see it from the perspective of the daughter, because we see at the very beginning and we see her at the very end. What we're supposed to do is we're supposed to connect with Mbenga's character. That's what we're supposed to do.
I think we're looking through a different lens that we're not supposed to be looking through right now.
So one of the things that I really liked about this episode is actually how well it connects up. One of the things that Nakia talks about at the very beginning is, she's basically lamenting her lack of agency. So if you see the rest of this episode as a way for her to exert that agency by creating this world, by changing the ending of her story, by giving, Adya and the Huntress like a whole thing. This is literally that's literally what's going on, is that Nakia is actually in the process of crafting a new story. So I don't really think that we can escape that. And I don't really think that we can.
I'm not trying to escape it.
And I don't think we can really
Y'all are not hearing what I'm saying. I'm not
Could I finish? Seriously, could I finish?
Hold on. How many times do you interrupt me? All the time.
Let her finish. Marie. Marie, what was the point? Because it's like, okay, because it's like I'm still when I watched it, but now when I'm thinking about it, it kind of reminds me of a Prodigy story. It really does.
I liked it. I liked where it went. I liked how it handled everything. I really enjoyed all of it, actually. I loved, the fact that it's grounded in these concepts of story and having a conversation about like what the nature of story and how that talks to us. I'm really sorry you didn't enjoy it, Jermaine.
Yeah,
really
I'm sorry. I'm real sorry, man. Like I'll be honest, I just got done watching it 30 seconds before I came on. Yeah.
But honestly, I think we've plumbed about the depths of this.
Jermaine, what would you give it out of 10?
I gave it a 4.5.
So this story was worse than the child who got that fed to the planet?
What are you talking about?
The one 2 weeks ago.
Literally the last episode.
The one 2 weeks ago, the cute kid that got used as a Energizer bunny for the planet.
Oh yeah.
This was worse than that.
Yeah.
Whoa.
See that interests me.
So this is what I'm getting. This is what I'm getting right now. What I'm getting is you're upset that I have a different opinion from you.
No, not at all.
Like, hold up, wait a minute.
Okay.
I feel like I'm fully capable of having a different opinion from you all. I think the difference is that this time I'm reacting and responding, whereas in the past I would just sit and not say or do anything. And I think that it's being read like I'm challenging you. I'm not challenging you. I'm simply asserting myself.
That's not at all what I'm saying. But what I'm saying,
but why is today different? Why are you all emotional?
I'm not emotional. I'm just. I'm perplexed. You're literally you're cherry picking elements of the episode to support an argument that doesn't hold water, and you're also, and instead of actually listening to our responses to you, you tell us that we're not hearing you. You tell us, effectively, I mean, you try to skew it in a different direction, and if we were to map out this argument. It basically boils down to this didn't work for you, and that's awesome, and that's fine. And I think there are valid criticisms to be made. I think you're right. I think we needed to be more invested in Nakia before landing on this. This reminds me a lot of like when Iriam died in Discovery. Like there was literally, we had no reason to be invested in her outside of that one episode. And I think that's a little bit of what's going on. I do agree with you that Pollux is kind of a useless character, and that doesn't really go anywhere. Same with the Huntress. So in terms of that structure, like that's fine. But again, I think this is really meant to reflect the authorship of a 9-year-old girl. And I think it's meant to exist in that kind of hybrid space. And I think it does a really good job of that. And I've told you why.
So can I ask you a question?
Which means that, like if I respect that you're having a different opinion, which I do, then you have to respect mine.
No, you don't, because you just said that you just said that I'm supposed to agree with you. And I'm not supposed to agree with you. You also said that I didn't offer anything to explain why I felt the way that I did, and you belittled
that's not what I said.
By saying, by saying that it's not doing it for me. No, I gave you specifics
that's not what I said.
As to why. Actually, that's exactly what you said.
It's really not, because what I said was that you weren't explaining. You didn't explain when you talk. You make a broad statement about like story structure or various other elements, and then you would just be like, and this sucks, and then we'd move forward to something else.
So most time, I need you to realize that most times when I speak, there's very few times that when I speak, people don't talk over me, right? And so part of what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get what I have to say in, so that people don't talk over me. And when I try to be specific about how I felt and what I felt, again, both of you started talking, and I continue to talk over you. That's what happened. Yes, sir.
Okay. So, all right. I hear it and I hear you. So the underlining issue is that you feel like that there are times when you're spoken over repeatedly, especially as showhead, which I totally get. Okay, cool. Because we've talked about this and we've kind of faced this issue in the beginning. But my question to you is that if that's the case, then why was there a bias towards doing the summary of the story in the very beginning before either of us even got a chance to speak? Like, instead of just really fleshing out the story out the window, you said the story was garbage and that it was terrible without really fleshing out the plot. I mean, usually you give it like a good 3 minutes, but for this, no time was wasted in giving, not saying your opinion. Okay, because a plot summary is called a plot summary, and then because we give the opinion respectfully. So if we're not allowing you to speak, then why take the time to go out the window by calling it garbage in the plot summary? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Also, I feel like we're no longer, like, at this point, we're no longer really addressing the episode. I really feel like we're addressing like systemic problems. So yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. Like, to get back to the episode, I really enjoyed it. I had a great time. Sorry, Jermaine didn't like it. I do think he did have a number of legitimate criticisms. I think some of them were not. But yeah.
What would you give it?
I gave it a 10 because I really loved it.
Okay. This is the only episode I think I would give a 10.
Hold on a second. So,
Please.
William, you asked me a question, right?
Yes.
You asked me a question, and I couldn't even respond to your question. Just now.
Please answer. Please. Thank you.
So, honestly, I don't even remember what your question was, to be honest with you.
Okay, I'll put it just in one phrase. If the issue is that we might rebuttal differently based on your having an opinion, when I personally believe that it's not, then why in the very beginning in the plot summary call the episode garbage without really fleshing out the plot summary like you normally do? Because if we weren't giving you the room to speak your opinion, how does that work when during the plot summary, or really the first 20 minutes for me specifically, really never having a chance to speak?
So there were a lot of different things in that one question. So in my plot summary, in my summary of the episode, part of the reason why I didn't do one was because I didn't think that there was a real strong plot to actually talk about, other than the fact that he found himself where he was, and he basically realized that he had to find this, I don't even remember what it was called, but basically he had to find his daughter. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else was just in the way.
Okay.
In terms of me not in terms of others speaking over me, I was specifically talking about after a question had been asked and I had the floor, then people would just immediately start talking over me.
Okay. I think I can think of plenty of Trek episodes, especially a few Voyager ones, where they were like absolutely terrible and pointless and the plot didn't hold any moot. But every story, whether we like it or not, has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it really wasn't fleshed out for this point. Really, it was just the first 10 minutes of the beginning and the last 10 minutes of the end. And that was it. It's still a plot summary. It's still a plot summary that's needed. So I'll say this. I'm sorry. That whatever I may have conveyed ignorantly, that's me. And not letting you feeling like you couldn't give your opinion. I'm sorry, but for this instance, I don't want you to feel that you can't give your opinion to us when it comes to this show, Jermaine.
I don't feel that. What I feel right now, honestly, what I feel right now is because I'm asserting myself. Now, all
Right?
of a sudden, there's an issue.
Right?
And if you think about it, any other time that I've challenged someone, it was met with, "What the hell are you doing, Jermaine?" And so I tried not to do that. I need you to understand that it's part of my personality to
Mm-hmm.
actually challenge,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't always do that because this is not the form in which that could happen and it be received.
Right? Okay. So, like, you gave it a 4 out of 10. Comparatively, it was worse than the
A
Energizer.
4.5.
I'm sorry. 4 out of 5,
4.5.
but 4.5 out of 10.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Okay. 4.5 out of 10. Okay. And comparatively, it's worse than I'm sorry, Marie, I forgot the name of that particular episode from 2 weeks ago. But I know you hate it, so I'm gonna just call him the Energizer Bunny Kid. But basically, it's worse than that. Okay, that's cool. So, at what point during the episode did this go off the rails for you?
Early on.
What point? Well, give me a scene.
I think right around the time in which we saw Spock's character,
Mm-hmm.
whatever role he was playing, like in and around that time, it was like, what is happening? Why is this happening? How does this connect to his daughter?
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. How does this connect to his daughter?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, once we realized that what he had to find had everything to do with his daughter, okay,
Mm-hmm.
all right, gotcha. But the world in which had the world that was created for us for this
Mm-hmm.
particular episode,
Mm-hmm.
um, there were there wasn't a whole lot there.
Um, okay. So basically, the world that they were encompassed in was not.
It wasn't fully fleshed out.
It wasn't fully fleshed out, right?
It wasn't fully fleshed out.
Okay. Okay. Then let me ask a comparative question.
So for instance, if
Okay.
the queen is going to be the queen, if the queen is going to be nasty, which I mean, there's got to be an antagonist in every story.
Right.
So if the queen is the antagonist, then we need to see her be the queen. We need to see her be the antagonist all throughout. However, what we saw that Spock's character was kind of sort of the antagonist. We also saw that towards the end, we saw that Pike's character, which I think that was actually a good thing. Pike's character kind of sold him out.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't see how that was connected necessarily to the antagonist of this particular story.
Mm-hmm.
In the way of her performance within this particular episode.
Okay. So when you watch this episode, were you comparatively looking for something like similar to the the Q episode where they all became Robin Hood characters?
No. I look
No.
at every episode
Yoo-hoo.
independent
Yoo-hoo, thank you.
itself.
Okay, so because I see, not saying that they took from those, because to me it's a classic Star Trek episode, but I saw multiple moments personally, if I may, that they borrowed from other films, like the Robin Hood sequence, the Jake and Benjamin relationship, learning how to let go, which we've established that you appreciated that moment in the end. I mean, it really goes on. But as far as like the world that is in, that this entity is reading the mind of a 9-year-old girl that's stuck in a transporter buffer. And when you look through the perspective of a 9-year-old child, like that boy or girl, really, depending on what they've been taught in life or what they've experienced, which we can now assume based on the story, she wasn't traumatized by anything really other than being stuck in the transporter buffer. That we're not going to see the adult badassery of a queen or an antagonist. which if you think about it, to a 9-year-old's when a 9-year-old tells you a story, they're not going to tell it to you the way an adult would tell the same story.
I don't have, that's not my issue. That is not my issue.
I thought you said that this was the world that you had the issue with, and that at the part of Spock, that's when it kind of went off the rails with, right?
So you have two characters who
Mhm.
knew that this story wasn't real. Two characters.
Right?
And
Okay.
Marie quite aptly identified the fact that Hemmer was able to transport them. Good. But this main character who was leading this particular episode, Dr. Mbinga, we didn't get to see new things about his character in this particular episode. We didn't get to see him be a badass doctor. We didn't get to see him be a leading male, meaning outside of the normal way in which he's always portrayed this particular character. Nothing really changed about him as a character. And what I mentioned earlier was the fact that we could have seen him fight. We could have seen him fall in love or attempt to seduce the queen. We didn't see any of that. Now these were things that he could have done all on his own, which had absolutely nothing to do with the story, which had nothing to do with the world that this entity, this godlike entity, had created. He could have decided to do any of those things. There were a number of different things that he could have done within that world, but he didn't. That's my issue.
So are you did you get the point across?
Yes.
Cool. All right. So your argument is that from Mbinga's character, as far as this particular episode go, there wasn't any further character development, and he just really didn't do that much. Almost the same way Picard didn't do that much for season 2. Correct?
I think it's a little different because Picard is the show,
right,
and Mbinga is a supporting cast member. Now, this was because this particular episode is really all about him. Mm-hmm. This was the moment in which his character could have shined in different ways that we had not seen. We had always seen him as a supporting and loving father, right? We had always seen it.
So, as a supporting and loving father, because he's part of the senior staff, it's what we as Trekkies call a Mbinga episode, a Riker episode, a Picard episode, blase blase. This actually reminds me of Marie, season 2, The Child, where Deanna had a son named Ian, and she had to let him go in the very end. In a way, minus all of the Q-ish-esque drama, I think it's almost the same story, because it's like, minus the pregnancy and all that, but
right, and then also spliced with the imaginary friend.
Right, spliced with imaginary friend. Like so many. I mean, and I heard earlier that there were some TOS things that were brought into this. I'll be honest, I still haven't finished season 1, let alone 2 and 3. So please don't hate me. But okay, so I guess I guess I know you said that it was from the Spock's character that it went wrong, and that okay. Now I remember the point I was trying to make. I'm sorry, I got derailed. I derailed myself. So even though Marina Sirtis wanted a Troy episode for season 1, but never really got it. She was just and still stayed, the cheerleading looking sex icon for season 1. Okay.
/MacGuffin.
Right. She had her hair one time, and that was in Encounter at Farpoint. The rest of the time she had a wig. Well, in The Child, it is what we call a Troy episode, when really the title kind of spells it out for you. It's about the child who's quite conscious of what's going on, Jesus style, actually. And there's like, look, I love you, but I have to go now. And and of course Riker feels her pain because they love each other. So maybe anxiety. Anxiety. That means beloved, I believe. So basically, even though this is as a Mbinga episode, am I saying his name right? And please tell me. Thank you. Okay.
Mbinga.
Mbinga.
Or Mbinga.
I think it's actually Mabenga.
Mabenga, yeah.
Mabenga.
Yeah, right. Him episode. It's about the child. It's about the child. It's always been about the child. It's like me watching the movie Twister. It's called Twister. It's a movie about tornadoes when really it's about a love story between Helen Hunt's character and Bill Paxton's character after they got divorced. It's about
That's amazing that you actually remembered all of that, because I did not.
Twister was great. I think it aged quite well until we hit 2030. But that's what I'm saying. Like,
so what I heard you say was Troy had a kid, and we got to see things from the perspective of the kid. And yet the character that we knew was Deanna Troi, and so we were experiencing this particular episode from the perspective not only of the kid but also from Deanna Troi. It allowed us to see a little bit more of who and what her character is and was capable of, her compassion, more of her empathy. We saw her care for someone other than herself, right? Do you agree?
I don't know.
Sure, but how is that new?
Right.
How is that new? Because remember the child.
Right.
The child is episode 1 of season 2. So we've already had Encounter at Farpoint. We've already watched her counsel various people through like Yars, like the whole shebang. So I guess my question is, because I legitimately am not understanding, how is the empathy and compassion new?
So we see her care for a child. This is something that she has never had. She's never had a child. Never, ever, ever, ever had a child. She's fallen in love with this child. There's something of her, even though it's not really hers. Well, it is, but you know what I'm saying. This is a development of her character that is different than what we had come to know and see her as. And in this particular episode, what I'm asserting is that, yes, we have seen Mbinga be a loving and doting father. But we haven't seen all of those other things that someone within this world is capable of.
So you're saying that the new character development for Troy's character was her ability to love a child for season 2.
Yes, we saw her differently. We saw her differently. How can we see Dr. Mbinga's character? How could we have seen Dr. Mbinga's character differently? What changed about his character?
I actually can put one in. So they both had the same ending. They both had a child that they had to let go. Well, I think the new development was, and Marie actually hit on this on the mark earlier, was the reaction from Mbinga, that subtle character that I would personally argue as a subtle character development from Mbinga himself, was when he got to see his daughter in the formation of an adult, which Choi never got at all. As a matter of fact, when she had a son, he never even lived to become an adult. So even in Picard, either one never got that yet, whereas Mbinga did. So now we have the same ending, but two different concepts of the same structure. You see where I'm going with this?
So we basically see that he loves his daughter.
Correct.
How is that different from what we've ever seen since the first episode?
That his love is evolving, that it changes, that he
as it always does.
How has it evolved and changed until this episode?
What I'm saying, you all are stuck on the daughter. I'm saying, what could his character have done differently within this episode? Outside of the daughter.
I think what he did differently was what his daughter asked of him in the very beginning, because he was stuck on a certain way the story was supposed to end per what the book said. But he went along with the storyline of what his daughter, and that's the moment that he realized it was his daughter, when that different ending was because the two characters who apparently knew each other in more ways than one. That's a different conversation. But they knew each other. Wait a minute. This isn't what's supposed to happen in the book. This was my daughter. Ding. So does that answer the question?
No, not at all.
Okay.
For instance,
okay,
if we had seen Dr. Mbinga be enraged, have we ever seen his character become enraged about anything? Have we ever seen his character? We've kind of seen him smile, but have we ever seen him like just fall over laughing at something? That's what I'm talking about.
I don't want
everything that you all are saying is within the confines of his daughter, and what I'm asking for in this particular episode is for this character to develop beyond his daughter.
This is where I probably should not speak on this part at all, but how does one do that over their child? And you both are parents, so only you two can answer this. But when this whole I'm not even gonna call it episode. When this whole scenario, this whole situation is centered, once you realize it's centered around your child, how do you grow beyond that when it's about the child? When it's your maternal and paternal instincts to protect said child at all costs?
I'm not asking you all to.
I'm trying to get it.
I'm asking. So, for instance, let's say the red, what is it? The Red Guard, whatever they are.
Crimson Guard.
Crimson Guard.
Crimson Guard. So let's say they attempt to stop him.
Right.
However way that they attempt to stop him. And let's say we see him fighting, whether physically, whether with a sword or a gun or whatever. This is something outside of his character. He's still trying to get to his daughter.
Right.
We're seeing his character develop in other ways outside of what we've always known it to be.
I have two things that I would argue that he did do. One that he didn't do, and one that he did do. He actively knew or realized later on that he was not hallucinating, for one. So because he realized he was not hallucinating, he knew that throughout all of Star Trek, there have been mind-controlling aliens and substances and blah, 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 whatever. He knew that he could not potentially harm his shipmates. Because, as a doctor, your obligation is to do no harm. And once you come out of that state and you realize that this dude that you just kicked his ass is dead, and it's not, whatever happened, then boom, then what, right? That's one. I feel like he was conscious about that because I think he kind of mentioned it like in the third act at some point. That's one. And then another, he realized, of course, trying to get to his daughter, but Marie, what was the engineer's name?
Hammer,
right. He was like, okay, I see that this guy, that his memory is intact and he's telepathic, which means we need to have a conversation, which is called the climax, was had. So at that point in the story, which comes back to the part that there is a story to, even though it may not be an approved story, I can get behind that, but there's still a beginning, middle, and end, act 1, 2, and 3 with a climax, and then it kind of boils down.
Can we also get behind the fact that Hemmer's antenna finally start moving? This is a detail that's bugged me. So, if we were capable of doing this in Enterprise, why haven't we done it in Strange New Worlds? And so we finally get to see them move.
So William, what you basically said was that Dr. Mbinga was a doctor. He used his doctoring skills to realize that he shouldn't hurt any of the people in this fantasy world.
I mean, I'm not
How is that different? How is that different? How has his character moved? How has it changed?
How has it changed?
He opens up to Una.
He
and tells her the story.
Well, he opened up to Una several episodes ago.
Okay, and then let's say he did. I'll still go back to the one of the first points that I had was that he his love for his daughter remained unconditional even in a godlike form.
Okay. Nothing changed. You said remained. Nothing changed.
But isn't that like a growth in character development? Just like you said that it was a growth in character development for Troy to have a child? I'm confused now.
Yeah, I'm not getting it.
Look,
however, we are at the hour mark.
That's Marie's way of saying let's go. But okay, yes, we are at the end. And so that means that it is time for us to go. Anything that anyone would like to say towards the end to kind of wrap this up?
So I wasn't having the best day today, but to me, my personal opinion, this episode made it better. Like it made it a lot better because, you know, just watching it on my TV and I was just like, hey, it's Star Trek, you know, I can't go wrong with Star Trek. Even if I don't like the episode, it's Star Trek. I don't care. But I loved it. I give it a 10 out of 10. I think I gave the first episode of the season a 10 out of 10 as well. So this is probably the second episode that I'll give a 10 out of 10 because, I mean, you two know almost better than anyone. Even my backstory in learning to let certain things go. So that's why I like it.
Marie?
I appreciated it for the layered storytelling, how the different pieces interlocked. Both the fact that it was speaking to M'Benga as a character, but also speaking to Strange New Worlds as a series and speaking to the nature of story.
Okay. And with that is going to round us all out. Live long and prosper. Have a wonderful week, my loves.
Now, again, I'm going to say this again because we're near the end of our show. If you are our allies, we are not talking to you. We are not talking to you. This does not... Okay? We're not talking to you. Stop trying to take our and make it your goddamn business. It ain't got nothing to do with you. It ain't got nothing to do with you.
Our experience of grief independently.
Bruh.
Yes.
I love that they're in the comments.
So much is like, I'm just reading the comments.
Yeah. They should have brought their child out. Such a good point, Will. God, that's such a good point. And he's really thought about it too. You should be here. William, get over here.
I thought he had a girlfriend on Insta. It's been ages since I've mucked about, but
Okay, moving on. Let's move on.